This is one of the most ridiculous trades I have ever seen. This trade would be one of the worst in Chicago Bulls history if this were true. This is an hypothetical trade which would send Zach LaVine and our very own Alex Caruso over to the Sacramento Kings for some draft capital and some expiring contracts. I'm going to talk about how ridiculous this trade would be if this were true, and also to why both teams might actually want to even think about exploring this. This is Rico Greenhowe. This is another episode of Bulls Digest. And before we jump into it, wanted to let you know that 84% of you guys that watch the videos are not actual subscribers. Make sure that you go ahead and you hit that subscribe button so you can stay up to date with the latest happenings and news with your Chicago Bulls, guys. So without further ado, let's go ahead and jump into the video here. So this is a trade where I get it if you're thinking like Zach LaVine wants to go back west. I could totally understand that. He played his ball in UCLA. He's been linked to the Sacramento Kings before. He could definitely want to go back to the Lakers. He could want to go back to Golden State. And I believe Sacramento at one point in time had actually offered him an offer sheet before we'd actually went ahead and showed him the bag and paid him a lot of money here. Now, I get it. That makes sense there. But this trade is a bit of a stretch. So let's start off with the first part of the video, which is the proposed trade sends LaVine to the Kings. This is exactly what was broken down here in the article. So first things first, proposed Bulls trade takes drastic measures to move Zach LaVine. And the Bulls would get Davion Mitchell. They would get Harrison Barnes. They would get Kevin Huerter. They also would get Sasha Vanzikov, and also they would get a 2028 first round pick, top 10 protected, and a 2030 first round pick, top 10 protected. As far as the Kings, they would get Zach LaVine and Alex Caruso. All right, guys. So first and foremost, I'm trying to keep a straight face. The fact that we would be this desperate, I love how the article starts with desperate, because that's exactly what that would be, a desperation to get rid of Zach LaVine. And in my opinion, you're going to give up your best defender, right? And you're going to obviously get rid of, Zach LaVine's contract, which is a good thing. But I am not getting rid of my best defender on the club. All right, in Alex Caruso, who in a lot of ways to me, he actually plays with more heart. He plays with more defensive intensity than my 7-footer out there, Vucevic, who is, 7'4", 7'5", and he doesn't give me that kind of energy. Like, he literally plays like he's 7'5" out there sometimes. And so there is no way I'm giving up my captain of my defensive unit just to offload a contract. And the players that we would be getting back, okay, Davion Mitchell, they call him off night. Off night sometimes doesn't play with the same type of intensity as Alex Caruso. Matter of fact, they're not even on the same page. Davion Mitchell, to me, much respect to Patrick Beverley, but he's in that same tier, right? As a Patrick Beverley type of player, he has a little bit more offense. And I just think defensively, he hasn't put in the body of work yet to go ahead and say, yes, we would definitely make this deal. With Harrison Barnes, to me, he's like an inconsistent Tobias Harris at this point in his career. You have some days where he's on fire. You have some days where he's terrible. And when he's bad, he's bad. This was the story when he was with the Golden State Warriors. I get it. He's an NBA champion. He would bring a championship mindset to the locker room. But at this point in time, his play is so up and down. I'm not sure about that. I love Kevin Huerter. I think that Kevin Huerter is a guy that, to me, he's like almost like Kurt Heinrich. All right. We loved Kurt Heinrich. We loved everything about him. But I don't know if Kevin Huerter now is on the decline. He's had some tough seasons the last couple of years. And, I'm not sure he's necessarily going to fit with Chicago, let alone here that we're getting mostly guards back. All right. I get the fact that we do get a Euro MVP here in Sasha, but I'm not really banking on the fact that he's ready to take that leap and become a major part in the rotation. We do need some height and we do need some stretch, small forwards and things like that. But to take a chance on guys that to me are unproven or might be on the back half of the career, so to speak, this is a terrible, terrible trade, which leads us to the next part of the video, guys, which is should this trade happen? And I'm going to tell you that absolutely this should not happen. These trades should not happen. And this is why these trades should not happen. This is what was said in the article and why both the Bulls would entertain this and then the Sacramento Kings would entertain this. So starting with the Bulls, they should be happy to move Zach LaVine in this proposed trade. The Bulls should be happy to get off of LaVine's contract and can plug Herter and Barnes into their rotation or shop them for additional draft picks if the team pivots to a rebuild. Mitchell still carries a lot of defensive potential at the number 9 overall pick of the 2021 draft. And then also too with Vancekov, the EuroLeague MVP last year. He could thrive in a bigger role, Swartz wrote. Getting future first-round picks gives the Chicago more trade ammo if it wants to go star chasing over the next few years. All right. And then from a Sacramento standpoint here, for Alex Caruso, this would obviously be painful. Caruso is arguably this regime's greatest success story, and he's a perfect embodiment of the culture the franchise wants to project. Trading him would be painful for the management team. I can assure you that. Caruso is heading into the final year of a 3-year, $36.9 million contract. The Bulls have rejected offers for him in the past, including from the Golden State Warriors. And for LaVine and what the Kings would get out of this, LaVine would be a perfect second offensive option to De'Aaron Fox, taking pressure off the all-star guard to carry the scoring load. Bleacher Report's Greg Swartz wrote on April 11th, he would feast on cutting opportunities and wide open threes off passes from Sabonis as well. All right, so to unpack that, first of all, starting with that last thing we saw with the Kings, that's absolutely ridiculous. To say that LaVine would be able to play off the ball, if LaVine was willing to play off the ball, then we would probably want to keep LaVine. The fact of the matter is LaVine has to have the ball in his hands. LaVine reminds you of Tracy McGrady, like in the sense, and not anything to go against Tracy McGrady. I'm not trying to bash him or anything like that. He won games and things, but the way he needs to get his shots up, he's a volume shooter. It doesn't work with the way the core is currently constructed. That's why we would want to trade him. He doesn't fit that. And with De'Aaron Fox and Sabonis, you're telling me that De'Aaron Fox is going to just go ahead and have Zach LaVine just sit out in the corner and shoot threes? Like, Zach LaVine is not that type of player. He has to have the ball to feel like he's part of the game. He doesn't play defense at a high level, and he doesn't rebound at a high level. Tracy McGrady did those things. Like, he did a little bit of everything. Zach LaVine is not that type of player. So to say that you're just going to turn him into a spacer and then say that he's going to be able to just cut off the basketball, that doesn't make sense. And then what are you going to do with Malik Monk out there? You know, I think that De'Aaron Fox would probably go ahead and defer more to like a Malik Monk than he would to Zach LaVine. So that's ridiculous to say that Zach LaVine's going to go over there and play off the ball. That's just not going to happen. You know, that's not going to happen at all. And besides the fact, he is a former dunk champion. He thrives on slashing and going towards the rim. It literally would take the ball out of De'Aaron Fox's hands. And that's the same situation that they had with Tyrese Halliburton. That's why they got rid of him. It took the ball out of De'Aaron Fox's hands. You do not take the ball out of De'Aaron Fox's hands. This is how the Kings operate. You don't do that. That's number one. That's not going to work. Next up, with the Chicago Bulls, it just told you he is the heart and soul of the franchise and one of the most successful pieces that the Chicago Bulls have had as far as this regime, as far as getting players over there and actually being a successful signing. I can assure you that Arturas Kornisovic is not going to trade Alex Caruso, especially since he didn't trade him to Golden State. And I think that Golden State package, if I'm not mistaken, might have actually had Klay Thompson included in this. All right. This is not happening. That's not going to happen. On top of that, we would be essentially getting back guards. That makes no sense. We're getting more guard play back, and we're getting forwards who, I think that they're kind of diminishing. Not to take anything away from Harrison Barnes. Like, I love Harrison Barnes, but there's times where Harrison Barnes may go out and score 10 points. He may score 20 points, and he's never been a high rebounder. He's never been a high volume rebounder. That's an issue. We just got done getting out rebounded against the Knicks. We need guys that are going to go in there and grit it out. And he's not that type of guy. He's just going to be a perimeter oriented player, and that's not going to work for us. All right. And so, I think that this trade is ridiculous. It doesn't work. And just, shooting it down to what was kind of thrown out there. Right. And shout out to where you can find this article as well. You can find this on Heavy on NBA.com. This was a terrific piece that was thrown up, which actually talks about this Bleacher Report. But yeah, I think that this trade is ludicrous. It's definitely not happening. And to go back to the draft capital, this is the last thing I'm going to talk about in my rant. Guys, look at the 2011 draft. The 2011 draft is where we drafted Jimmy Butler. Okay, Jimmy Butler was the 30th pick in that draft. He was the last pick in the first round. He became one of the most improved players. He's been on some defensive teams. He's led teams to the NBA Finals, and he was the 30th pick in the draft. We're banking on protected top 10 picks. Some of those top 10 picks they're not even in the league anymore. When you look at that draft class, they're not even in the league anymore. And the 60th pick in the draft, which was the last pick in the second round, was Isaiah Thomas, who became the MVP of the NBA. All right. So to bank on protected picks in those years, like, we don't even know what's going to come out there. Like, that's just ridiculous. And furthermore, in recent history, if you look at it, we just got a guy that had numbers put up that are equivalent to Victor Wembanyama. He had 20 points and 22 rebounds. Only Victor Wembanyama has done that. And guess what? Adama Sonoko was not even drafted. So to bank on draft picks and just to be this desperate to offload Zach LaVine is absolutely ridiculous. It would be the worst trade in Chicago Bulls history, in my opinion, and I think we could do a lot better. I would much rather us go out here, trade him for one expiring contract, be done with it, and then we can go from there, not use young pieces in the trade, and also, two, not lose our draft capital. And I will say this, if we had Sam Presti, right, from OKC in our front office, I might be okay with possibly entertaining shipping Caruso and LaVine off for some picks. But this front office is so unproven when it comes to drafting. So absolutely not. The Chicago Bulls are not doing this. They shouldn't do this. What do you guys think in the comments? Do you guys think the Chicago Bulls should go ahead and trade Zach LaVine over to the Kings and our best defender over to the Kings for some unproven draft picks and some players that, in my opinion, haven't proven themselves or on the downside? Do you think that we should go ahead and trade Zach LaVine for a possible buyout? Kind of what we suggested before with the Ben Simmons deal. What do you guys think? What should the Chicago Bulls do? Do they have leverage this offseason now that their young core is actually playing better? Let me know in the comments. This is Rico Greenhowe. Even though I just roasted management, I still love the Chicago Bulls. Let's go Bulls. I'll see you guys on the next one. Peace.